Welcome back to the People Development Podcast. Hey, on this podcast, we believe that growing yourself is actually best achieved when you help to develop the people around you. I'm your host, Harrison Tash, and with me today is Jessica Kriegel. Now, Jessica is the Chief Strategy Officer at Culture Partners. She's also the co-author of Surrender to Lead. And as you can tell, I have lots of notes. We discuss everything from what surrendering looks like and what it means, all the way to what culture really is. I can't wait for you to join us in the conversation, and we'll see you on the other side.
You don't want to never count yourself out, make it a great one. Just be sure to leave out the doubt, time to wake up.
As promised, Jessica Kriegel, thanks for joining the podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so you know what? Our last conversation, I got to dive into why you do what you do and the book and all this stuff. And, you know, it's all great. But I would like the listeners to at least just hear from you kind of a little bit of why are you doing what you do today? And how did you get to the point where you wrote this book?
Oh, it's such a good question. Okay, not to get too touchy-feely too quickly, but I feel like this book was given to me through a series of events. Yeah, I mean, I wrote the book in 2 weeks. I mean, with my co-author, Joe Terry, we spent 3 years trying to figure out what this book was about and how we were going to do it. And then suddenly it hit me like lightning. And then 2 weeks later, we had a manuscript. You know, it was like we weren't ready until suddenly we were super ready. And all of that work that we had done in those 3 years building up to it. So to back up, I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at Culture Partners. My co-author, Joe Terry, is the CEO of the company. And we are a workplace culture consulting firm, and we help businesses drive results by changing the hearts and minds of the people who work at your organization to be in alignment with your strategy. And we do that with this thing called the results equation, which is, you know, your purpose and your strategy and your culture all aligned to get results.
Which we're going to go into that because that's an amazing.
We will go into that. Yeah, that's all in the book, right?
Yeah.
What we were missing, I mean, we had all this content. We had all of this know-how and these customer stories. What we were missing was the heart of the book. And the heart of the book came when I was taking a nap one day and I was listening to a podcast and I fell asleep and I woke up. And the first thing I heard when I woke up from the nap was, and that's the difference between surrender and management. And it was like, oh man, there it is. We have to write a book about the power of surrender, because surrender is the thread that ties all of the work that we've been doing, all of the research, all of the customer stories. And I called Joe all excited and he was all in right away. So I'm also on a personal journey, as Joe has been, and we tell those stories. I'm a recovered alcoholic and he's an Ironman athlete. He's a 5-time CEO that has been getting results and driving growth his entire career. And I'm, you know, tongue in cheek, a bit of a train wreck trying to figure out how to live, right? And yet we relate so much to each other on this one thing about the power of surrender, because we've come to that conclusion from very different paths. We've had very different lives, but we agree so deeply on this one thing. And we thought, if you and I are totally aligned on this thing, there's probably something there. And then we see it work with our clients. And that's really the origin of the book, was a lot of thinking about how are we going to put this together, and then a strike of lightning.
Yeah, well, I love that. And you know, if they're not watching this podcast, they can just hear me talk about this. But I'm holding the book up right now, and just look at all these notes. You should see how the highlights and everything, right? Like it was a really good read, and I came away with so much. So I'm excited to share with the audience. So let's dive right in and share some of this book, which is going to be released, or if you're listening to this, it might already be released. You got to go to Amazon, right? It's all on all major platforms, correct?
Yes, it is available for pre-order now. So when you're listening to this, you can buy it already on Amazon or Barnes and Noble. But it is getting released January 27th.
Nice.
So that is the date.
Okay, so let's go into Surrender to Lead. Where would you want to start? I mean, if it was my pick, I would start at the very beginning with, you know, Messi versus Ronaldo story, which I'm not going to take away too much of for the audience there, but amazing start to the book. But maybe past that, where do you start when you start thinking about the favorite parts of the book for you?
Well, let's actually start there without going into too much soccer nerddom. We can talk about the basic concept of surrender, and let's simplify it for the listener by putting surrender on a spectrum, right? On one extreme end of the spectrum is the ultimate surrendered leader. On the other end of that same spectrum is the extreme command and control leader. And
Hmm.
so what we're talking about is that you fall somewhere on that line, and we actually have a surrendered leader assessment. If you want to take the assessment and find out where you are on that line, you can see how much of a command and control versus surrendered leader you are. And I open the book with a story about Ronaldo versus Messi. There has been a my lifelong debate about who is the GOAT in
Right.
soccer. Is it Messi or is it Ronaldo? And I mean, nowhere is this argument more fierce than in my child's elementary school. The third graders are very committed to their sides on this. And
Yes.
the book has a very strong opinion because one is a surrendered leader and one is a command and control leader. And you can probably guess, if you know anything about soccer, that Ronaldo is the command and control leader. I dissect the final World Cup, a moment in which Ronaldo is bossing people around. I mean, if you remember that World Cup and how he showed up in it,
Yeah.
beyond just what I even write about in the book, he was desperate to get that one thing he had never gotten, the one accolade in his career that would have been the crowning achievement to clinch the GOAT title, so to speak. And it was a command and control approach, and he is a command and control leader because it's all about him. It's all about his ego and what he wants and how he knows best about how to get it. When he talks about himself, he describes himself as the best that there ever was. And then you compare that to Messi, who says it's not about me, it's about the team. It's
Right.
about the journey. It's not about the destination. And Messi won the World Cup that year, and Messi is the GOAT in my opinion. He
Hey,
may not have
second
as many
that.
goals. Thank you. Okay, I'm glad you
Yes.
agree. He may not have
Second
as
that.
many goals, but he has way more assists, and that says something when you're playing a team sport, right? So
Yeah.
we dissect the way that they speak, the way that they play, and the outcomes that they got. And I'm trying to juxtapose two extremes. And what I want the listener here to understand is that we're not one or the other. It's not a binary choice, right? We make decisions from one or the other place, but I am both a command and control leader and a surrendered leader, depending on my mood and the situation.
Good
We go
point.
back and forth. And so this book is an encouragement to lean more heavily into surrender because there is so much that encourages us to be the command and control leader, especially in corporate capitalism. So we need to balance that out with a counterintuitive approach. And what we found in our research and with our clients is it actually drives way more results, believe it or not. It just doesn't feel as intuitive.
No, it's a good point. And I had a lot of thoughts going through my head as reading the book is it's right there you mentioned it. Sometimes it's situational, right?
Yeah.
My other thought was is it personality driven? And can you
Yeah.
get past that stuff, right?
Well, I did. I can. And Joe did. Joe could. So I think you absolutely are not stuck in your personality. My big aha moment was spiritual in nature. And it went from being using, in my addiction alcoholic to someone that was committed to recovery and living a different way. I've
Yeah.
had a total personality change. I am completely different than who I was 6 years ago. But that's because I've done a lot of work and I
Right.
have surrendered. The surrender was the key to that shift. I was gripping so tightly. And then when I let go, something brand new opened up. Joe, meanwhile, did his own surrender in a different way. He has been successful his entire career. He has a 33-year marriage, I think now, that is two beautiful adult children. His family is, I mean, he's got like the perfect life, he's set it all up and he's an Ironman athlete. And he's
Yeah.
gone to Kona multiple times. I mean, he's incredible in all ways, but he was also gripping tightly in a different way. And he also surrendered in a way that allowed him to open up a new self. And he would also describe himself as completely different. Part of that has to do with an accident that he had. And there's a great book. Another book recommendation I'll make is by Richard Rohr called Falling Upward. That sometimes we have to fall to go up.
Yeah.
And I won't go into it much more than that, but there is something to be said that we try and we strive and we grip and we control, and that sometimes we reach a point where that's no longer possible. And so we fall, and it is the greatest gift that we can have because it allows us to see a new path forward.
Okay, and I totally agree with all that. And as I was reading the book, I started to get to the point where I was like, so wait, what does it mean to actually surrender then? Because it's not throwing up the white flag. You mentioned a
No.
Navy SEALs thing, how the military hates this, right?
Yeah.
So give us what this counterintuitive approach really means.
Yeah, I work out with a bunch of military people at a CrossFit gym, and I asked them one day, "What is the first thing that you think of when you hear the word surrender?" And they were all like, "Never surrender, quitting, failure." I mean, it
Yeah,
was like, okay, I'm writing a book about surrender. I mean, they would have kicked me out of the gym.
yeah,
But the Navy SEALs have a saying, which is control the controllables. And there's a corollary, a hidden message in that. It's pointing you to two things: control the controllables, obviously, but also, and stop trying to control the uncontrollables.
yeah.
That's what we spend too much time doing, is we get stuck in our resistance to the things that we don't want them to be the way that they are. And that's the opposite of surrender. That's command and control. My people aren't doing what I told them to do. My daughter isn't cleaning her room. My dog isn't behaving. My husband isn't bringing me flowers often enough. Here's all the things in reality that I don't like. And
Yeah.
I am resisting that. And I want to control that. And I want to change it. Right. And that's actually change resistance, because to surrender is to stop trying to control the uncontrollables and to put your energy on the one thing that you can control, which is yourself.
Mm.
Stop fighting reality and instead say, how can I show up in this moment? So the Navy SEALs are, believe it or not, experts in surrender, because when the chopper is going down in enemy territory because of some equipment malfunction, they're not spending a bunch of energy talking about who's to blame for this, who didn't tighten the bolt, why I don't want this to happen. They're not
Yeah.
thinking that way. They're thinking, how do I adapt in this moment to show up in the way that I need to show up so that I can, you know, be my best self and get the best outcome. They're surrender experts. So how can a leader take those lessons and stop trying to control the uncontrollables, which, believe it or not, for example, as a leader, none of the people that report into you are controllable. We
Mm.
think that they are because we have a title of director and our job is to direct them, but people have free will and they're not going to just do what you said because you said to do it. If it were that simple, we wouldn't need leadership books. It
Yeah.
would be just obvious, right? So
No,
they
that's a
have
good.
free will. How do you get them to exert that free will in the way that you want them to so that you can drive results? That's what this book shows you how to do.
Yeah, and I love that, and it is counterintuitive, right? Like you
Yeah.
said, like on an org chart, you think, well, they report to me, so when I say do this, they do this. It takes me back to over the last few years where there's been a lot of volatility in the market, and I have literally seen teams spend hours talking about the things they can't control,
Yeah.
talking about how, like, why did this happen? How did this happen? It's like, so there is a place to maybe talk about how it happened, but when you talk about surrender, it's on the controllables, and you say that you can control you. So can you give us some examples of how you've seen this play out really well?
Yeah. So we have a model called it's the accountability model, and you're either above the line or below the line. This is in the last part of the book around accountability. And so to be a below the line is to play the blame game. It's the victim mentality. It's who's at fault here, who's to blame. It's all the games we play to avoid accountability at work. I didn't see the email. That was marketing's job. I don't know what you're talking about. That's not my job. That's not in my job description. Well, they didn't do it. They were supposed to do it and they do it. We like to blame because let's explain why. It's perfectly natural and logical. First of all, we do this as kids, right? It's like when I come home and there's a marker on the wall and I say to my daughter, what happened? She's like, the dog did it. She's
Yeah.
below the line in that moment, right? She's trying to blame someone else, get out of being in trouble. And we want to get out of being in trouble at work, because if we get in trouble, our financial security is at risk, our career growth is at risk, our family is at risk because we may lose our job. And so it's totally natural. And we actually researched this with our clients. I'm going to have you guess what percentage of time people spend below the line in meetings at work?
Wait. Hold on. I'm gonna put some thought into this. Okay.
Okay, think about it.
Uh, I'm gonna say 32%. It's very specific. I
No,
know.
if only you must be working with some good companies because it is
Oh.
higher than that. Keep going.
Okay. All right. Second guess is gonna be 55%.
Yeah, so it's somewhere between 50 and 75% on
Oh,
average, and
jeez.
I think this is my bias, I don't have any research to back this up, but I think the bigger the company, the more time you spend there.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Well,
think of
do
how
you think
much.
that's because maybe as you get more resources in a company, you like to figure out why things happen? Is there a correlation there?
It could
Which is
be. I mean, again,
uncontrollable a lot
this
of
is
times.
just my opinion, right? So I'm making this up, but my opinion, and I worked with Oracle for 10 years. So I've worked at, that was 140,000 people
Yeah.
company. And I've worked at a small, culture partners. We've got 40 full-time employees. So I've been in both worlds. I think it's that there's more people to blame.
Yeah.
There's just,
Good point. Yeah.
there's more bureaucracy, there's less autonomy at a big company, and there's more people to blame. Well, my manager wouldn't let me, or that team didn't deliver, or I didn't see the email. I mean, there's just,
Yeah.
it's easier. In a small company, the spotlight is a little bit more on you than in a big company where you can kind of disappear, in the
Yeah.
mess of all the people. That's my guess.
No,
So,
that's a great
okay,
point.
so we talked about below the line. Let's talk about above the line, how to get above the line. And to get above the line is to make a personal choice to focus on what you can control to drive key results. Because what does stop fighting reality mean? Which is our first step in surrendering. To stop fighting reality is to accept that there's a whole bunch of stuff I can't control. I can't control what the regulatory environment is. I can't control what the executives decided at their Napa retreat while I was on vacation. I can't control how nice or mean my manager is. I can't control what the other teams are doing. I can't control a- anything, right?
Yeah.
Other than me. So if I want to take accountability, the best way to do that is to focus on me. Like, what can I do to take the right next steps to drive results? And so there's a 4-part question framework that we recommend you use to move from below the line to above the line. And you can ask yourself these questions, or you can ask people on your team these questions if you notice that people are below the line. And the first question is, what's going on? All right, that's pretty simple. Let's figure out what the problem is.
Yeah.
So the problem is we didn't hit our sales target for this last quarter. Okay, what's going on? We missed the target by $2 million, whatever. Second question is, what about that can I control? So now we've instantly gone above the line already because we're not blaming people, figuring out who's at fault, trying to shirk responsibility. So,
Mhm.
what about that can I control? Well, as the chief strategy officer, I'm in charge of thought leadership and lead generation, and I do keynotes. And maybe I can think about how I can increase the conversion rate on my keynotes, or maybe I can think about new research that would draw more eyeballs to our website, or maybe, these are things I can do to help the pipeline, even though I'm not a salesperson in that way.
Yeah.
Third question, what else could I try? You keep brainstorming because you've framed your mindset into the surrendered leader mindset, which is one in which I can't control anything outside of myself. Let me just focus on what I can do, right? That is to surrender. How can I adapt to the moment? How can I stop trying to control the uncontrollables and just control the controllables, which is me? That's surrender. And
Yeah.
then the fourth question is, what am I going to do by when? You set yourself up with a plan for based on what you can do to make a difference and the brainstorming you've done. How are you going to hold yourself accountable to that? And that's above the line. Think of how much more productive your team would be if they spent 50 to 75% of their time above the line versus below the line. Now, one last caveat, because I know I've been talking for a long time now. We don't discourage all below the line time. In fact, at our company, we will set aside below the line time because you need a little release sometimes, right? So we'll literally say, okay, we didn't hit our sales target. Well, this is the problem and that's the problem and they should have done this and that was annoying and the market is part of the issue and people are worried about the Trump administration and that's why they're not signing as many deals. We blame and then we're like, okay,
Yeah.
great, that was good. 5 minutes, timer's off. Let's now go above the line. So
Ah,
it's
okay.
cathartic at some level, right? And so again, it's not extreme binaries that you have to be all surrendered or all command and control. You do a little bit of both.
No, I man, that's really good. Well, I mean, in many instances, you need that timer. Like you said, you
Yeah.
need that timer. And I was just thinking about like scenarios of how this plays out, of whether it's your strategy of why it's not working, whether it's a team
Yeah.
that's not performing. I mean, scenario after scenario you can go through, and those questions are really good. Below the line, above the line. This below the line
I'll give
almost.
you a quick story.
Yeah, go
Can
ahead.
I
Let's
give
do
you a
it.
scenario since you're thinking about scenarios? This
Yeah.
was Edwards Life Sciences. So remember when the Sunshine Act was passed? This was the Affordable Care Act. This is Obamacare.
Yep. Yep.
And everything changed in healthcare. And this was a medical device company. And their business model was we give these big machines to hospitals and then they buy supplies from us for the machines, right? Well, the Sunshine Act was all about healthcare transparency, and they had to completely change their model in 1 year. They had to either lease the machine, sell the machine, or remove the machine from hospitals. They couldn't just give the machine anymore. So here's a company whose entire business model is getting upended, and there's nothing that they can do to control it because it's a regulatory decision, right? So the leadership team goes away to a retreat in Napa, probably. I don't know if it was Napa, but we use that Napa as a joke because you conjure images of, executives drinking wine,
Yeah.
which is just annoying to employees. And they decide, okay, we got to get in compliance. We have 1 year. Who are we going to make responsible for this? And they decided the sales team because the sales team has all the relationships with the clients. Now, the executives in that moment made the sales team responsible. But what they cannot do is make them accountable, right? You can make me responsible while I'm asleep for something, but I have to choose accountability. That's not something you can control in your team. This is why it is surrender, right? You cannot force accountability. You can only assign responsibility. So, how did they deal
Mhm.
with this? Because at the same time that they had to get into compliance with this new regulation, they wanted to increase the sales targets by 20%.
Mm.
So the sales team is being told, you have this huge new thing about getting in compliance and you have to sell more. Good luck, right? The
Right.
sales team's reaction was, it's too much. There's no way. How could you do that? I can't. This is all below the line, right? That's not possible. You're making my job impossible. And so the head of the sales department, a guy named Michael, he used those 4-part question frameworks. In every single conversation he had with the salesperson, the sales guy would come in. He's all upset. I say sales guy. I don't know if it was all guys. It probably was all guys. They have him come into the office and he's all complaining about what it is. And Michael would just say, okay, what's going on? The guy would talk. And what about that can you control? The guy would answer the question. And what else could you try? The guy would keep thinking. And what are you going to do by when? And the guy would come up with his own plan. So that's how you surrender. If you notice in that situation, Michael, the boss, didn't tell him to do anything. He just asked 4 questions and let him come to his own conclusions. And there you have surrendered leadership in action. And at the end of that year, they were 100% in compliance and they hit their sales target. I mean, it works.
That okay, one thing that I'm gathering from that is you said so it's uncontrollable to hold someone accountable. You don't really hold someone accountable technically, right? You give responsibility. Is that how you quoted it? Say it one more time.
Yeah. Responsibility is something that I can assign to you, but accountability is not something I can make you take. You have to take it. That's
Yeah.
up to you.
Okay, so let's go on to this a little bit because I really like that piece. So sure, considering what a surrendering leader looks like in this scenario, it's to ask the right questions.
Yep.
It's to influence them in the right direction, is what I'm hearing, anyways. And
Yeah.
it's to allow them to take the responsibility and the accountability and to run with it. Now, what does it look like when people start to veer off from what they said they would do? And it's like now I almost feel like I have to correct them in a way
Yell
that's
at you.
like
Yeah.
yeah,
Person,
regulate them,
I told
yeah.
you that we were, why didn't you? I mean, that's what it looks like, at least in my house, right?
Yeah.
So I'll tell you exactly. I have another model for you. Um, It's called the results pyramid. So let's break it down step by step. So we all want results, right? I mean, you want to hit the sales target, you want to get in compliance, you want to improve the safety metrics, you want to um, increase the pipeline. You want to, whatever the goal is, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
what department you are in, you have a goal. And we all know that those results will come if the people at the company take certain actions.
Hmm.
And that is full stop where a lot of leaders stop thinking. They're just like, results come from actions. So let's focus on actions. We got to sell. We got to do more. We got to create a plan. We got to have a retreat to make sure people know about the plan. And they just focus on, what do I have to do and what do they have to do in order to get the result? And that we call the action trap. The
Mm.
action trap is what leads to the burnout. It's what leads to low engagement. It's what leads to you spinning your wheels in this endless cycle of activity that feels like progress, but does not actually move the needle. But it does work a little, right? I mean, forcing more action, we actually researched this with Stanford. Companies that are stuck in the action trap, they will grow in our research on average 10% over 3 years. So it's progress, and progress looks good, and people want progress, and that's kind of the only trick they know. And so they do it and it works and they keep doing it, right? However, there is a better way. There's a way to get out of the action trap, which is how you, to answer your question, get people to take that accountability when they're not taking accountability. And it's to ask yourself the question, well, what gets people to take action?
Mm.
What motivates every employee at this company to do A or B? And the answer to that is, it is the beliefs that they hold. Your employees either believe in what they're doing or they don't. They either believe this is a waste of time or they don't. And what we found, and we've been in business for over 35 years now, while leaders want to change people's behavior by implementing processes and systems, people will act in alignment with their belief. And so
Mm.
it is actually the beliefs of your employees that are the unlock for behavior change and change management ultimately. You want to activate change in your company, you think about, what beliefs do my people have and what beliefs do I need them to hold? So that's how. Now the question becomes, well, how do I change beliefs? Because
Yeah.
again,
Well, that was my question. That was my question.
yeah,
You're reading my mind.
I did read your mind. It's what everyone's next question is, because I can't control your beliefs either, right? I can't
Right.
say, let's say you report into me like, okay, Harrison, you're now going to be comfortable with innovation. Risk taking is a part of our culture. Therefore, you're going to be a risk taker now. Like, that doesn't happen. But a
Yeah.
lot of CEOs, I mean, that is what the CEO town hall pep talk is. It's CEOs trying to tell people what to believe and what to think. We're a performance driven culture now.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
think that works. Like, oh, okay, great. Well, Bob said that I believe in performance driven experiences now. So here we go. It just doesn't work that way. So, how do you change beliefs? Well, all of our beliefs come from the experiences that we've had. I either take risks or I don't, because of my experience with taking risks,
Mhm.
right? I
Yep.
mean, and I either embrace feedback or don't, because of the nature of the feedback that I've received before and if it hurt or not, right? I mean, like, I hate getting feedback, for example, which is terrible because we really recommend a lot of feedback with our clients. But it's something that I personally struggle with, because I had experiences as a child with really, really critical feedback. And as a kid, not understanding that, I felt like I was being told I was bad. So when I get feedback about a keynote, and I've gotten feedback about keynotes before, I'm, let's say, generally a good keynoter. I mean, I have a career doing it, so I must be okay. But sometimes I'll give a bad keynote and I'll get bad feedback from my client, or even worse, like peers that saw my keynote that work with me, and it crushes me. Like,
Yeah.
it just makes me feel like I am bad, not I just, could improve something. So we have to overcome that, because the experiences that people bring to the workplace exist. And if you want to shift their beliefs, you have to shift their experiences.
Mm.
So that is actually the key to the results pyramid. As a leader, you need to focus on the experiences you're creating, because
Yeah.
those experiences will shape the beliefs of the people that work for you. And those beliefs will drive them to take action, and those actions will get you a result. So when people are not taking accountability, the question is, what belief do they have that is getting in the way of them taking accountability? And what belief do I want them to hold? And what experience can I create to help shape that belief in them. And if you notice, that's all about focusing on me doing different things for myself. That creates an experience for you, yes, but I'm not telling you what to do differently. I'm asking myself how I can show up differently.
Do you think that you have to have a fundamental desire or love for people in order to do this well?
No, I think you have to have a fundamental desire to drive results. I
Mm,
mean, this is really about results and not about people. I mean, people are benefited by these approaches, right? But I think that one of the big problems in HR today, in leadership in some industries, is that leaders think that we just have to make sure the people are happy, and if the people are happy, then it'll be better. And the
mm,
argument that lazy HR leaders will use is if people aren't engaged, they will leave, and if they leave, we'll have high turnover, and if we have high turnover, costs to replace people will go up, and as a result the company will suffer. I disagree with the premise, first of all, because if turnover was bad, we wouldn't be seeing as many layoffs as we are right now. With AI now coming into play, creating more efficiencies, you're seeing more and more companies lay people off. I think turnover is welcomed. And I'm going to go back to 2010, way before AI was part of the zeitgeist. We had leaders that were advocating for more compensation budget for top performers at this large organization that I was working for. And the compensation team said, no, we're good. And the leader said, if we don't pay them more and we don't keep them, they will leave. And the compensation team said, we're fine with that. Because they wanted turnover. They wanted fresh meat. They didn't feel like anything rose and fell with a single individual or a group of different individuals. They were large enough organization to say, we'll just hire more people, you know? And
mm.
so I don't think turnover is a good enough reason to just focus on people. And happy people don't drive results either. What we're talking about is a way that culture being the way that people think and act, ultimately drives results directly. Because if you create experiences that lead to the right beliefs, that result in the correct actions, which then get you the outcome you want, well, then you're driving bottom line results through the hearts and minds of people. And you're not doing the stupid things that most culture leaders will think work, which is like ping pong tables in the lobby and pizza parties, as if that
Beanbag
has
chairs in the
anything
break
to do
room.
with results.
Yeah. Okay, so what comes to mind is this quote, which is people won't remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel, right?
Yeah.
Now, I'll call that an anonymous quote, but it has been attributed to many people. But when I think of that, I'm wondering, like, in this results pyramid, can experiences be genuine without the love of people? And in your first answer with do you have to have a love for people, like, is no, it needs to be results. But can you create those experiences in a way that are good for both sides, win-win? And what does that look like?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. But let's also not be so arrogant as to decide what everyone wants, right? We're
Oh
not
yeah,
all the same.
yeah.
And there are people who work at SpaceX who love working at SpaceX. They love Elon Musk's leadership style, and they love sleeping at the office and the 80-hour work weeks, and they're living for that. They feel alive. They would rather do that than leave and go work at, REI, for example, right? What's the opposite of SpaceX in terms of culture? And there are people at REI that would rather die than work at SpaceX. But each person has their own preferences. And
Yeah.
so to say we all have to like each other and be, work-life balance and bring your authentic self to work, and whatever it is that a lot of HR people seem to think are the right answers to how to drive your culture, I just don't prescribe to that. I think that there are certain beliefs that will get you the right results that work at a certain company and not others. In fact, we actually researched this. So let me stop talking in terms of opinion and share the data. We studied with Stanford Graduate Business School 243 companies, and we wanted to know which culture type won in terms of driving profitability and growth. And there were 8 different culture types, dimensions that we were studying, right? An innovative culture, a results oriented culture, an accountable culture, a people first culture, et cetera, and so forth. There was only one that was significantly correlated with revenue growth over the course of 3 years, and it was an adaptive culture. So, what does that mean? It's not being stuck in one type, like people first or accountable culture.
Mm.
It's the ability to adapt between one and then to the other and then moving to another. And it makes perfect sense if you think about it because the world changes. We were just talking about the great resignation.
Yeah.
People were quitting their jobs in droves and
Yeah.
companies were throwing money at people to come. And now we're in the opposite. Everyone is getting laid off and the economy is crashing and the world is in chaos, right? So there's a very different culture required for a manufacturing company in one environment versus the other. And the best companies are the ones that were able to go from one to the other. And then as the economy goes through its next ebb and flow, as it continually does, because it's cyclical, to go back to people first culture, as is warranted by your strategy and the macroeconomic conditions at the time, right? What does that require, though, to be adaptive? It means that you have to surrender because so many leaders have a preference of what they think is right.
Mm.
I think a people first culture is best. I think a disciplined, execution oriented culture is best. I think innovation culture is best. But you have to let go of that sometimes to meet the needs of your strategy or your environment and then go back to it. And that means letting go of the way you wish it was, the way you think it should be.
No, it's interesting. I mean, that's the distinction between or and, right? It's like
Yeah.
the adaptive is the and. It keeps going. And I agree with that. I mean, I've seen it over the years where a company dies on a hill and it's like you should have changed. Not necessarily changes like technology, but changes like what you said. We focus so much on paying people the best or whatever it was. And it's like, yeah, like an adaptive culture. I could definitely see that. Now you
Well,
said
look
that
at REI right now. REI is struggling.
yeah.
REI is having a hard time with the balance sheet because they are very committed to the culture type. They probably need a little bit more accountable discipline execution orientation right now and a little less people first. And they can balance, right? But it
Yeah.
requires that adaptability.
Now you said something that was very important. I don't want people to miss that. You said in order to be an adaptive type culture, you have to surrender,
Yeah.
right? So go into this just a little bit deeper on in this type of culture that we're looking for, the surrender piece. Go back to your book, like the surrender piece. It just keeps coming back to that word and I love it. What does when you're thinking about the adaptive culture and you have to be able to adapt and move on and stuff, surrender, what does that look like if you were to put it into an example of I can surrender to adapt? Is it all about our own personal I guess things that we want, or does it
Yeah.
sometimes have to do with other things such as maybe to surrender you have to actually get a third party into a different perspective or what have you? Does that play out in different ways?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, we actually share something called the shift model in the book, and it's how to get your mind right. It's how to shift, shift your mind into a surrendered mindset, and it offers a roadmap to answer your question. So, S is stop fighting reality. We spent a lot of time talking about that, which is okay, the economic situation, tariffs now are a thing that a lot of companies didn't spend very much time or energy thinking about before. And now they have entire departments associated with tariff strategy. And it is not a department really, because tariffs affect every element of the business model. So now it is this brand new thing. So we spent a lot of time, if you remember, when the Trump administration introduced their tariffs plans, there was a lot of, I don't want that. That's bad. It's good. I don't like it. It's going to be, what's it going to,
Yeah.
that's the opposite of surrender. So stop fighting reality is, okay, we're in an environment now where tariffs are going to move and they're going to be unpredictable. Then H is have faith. This one's a little bit touchy feely, but let me tell you what I mean by have faith. Now, I have a higher power faith that I have faith in, and I actually have faith in God. And I just know that if I show up as my best self, I'll be okay. It will be okay. And that's what I have faith in. But let's say that you don't. Let's say this doesn't have to be, quote, spiritual in nature. Have faith in the collective intelligence of your team.
Mm.
Have faith that the strategy will play out. Have faith and pick something to have faith in, which really is about looking outside of yourself. It's about stopping so inwardly focused. And if you don't know what to have faith in, a good question to ask is, what is the source of all good, in your
Mm.
opinion? And I ask this question of the employees at our company, and I make it specific to the company. What is the source of all good at our company? And I asked 3 people, and they all gave the same answer, which is really interesting. They believe that the frameworks and the intellectual property on which the company was founded is the source of all good. Those are just gold, and that is where all of our success comes from.
Oh, wow.
So have faith in that. Figure out what it is that you can have faith in your company, the source of all good at your company, and have faith in it. Then I is identify what's yours. This is the accountability piece, focusing on yourself. What can I control, right? We asked that in that 4-part question framework. Then F is free yourself from fear.
Mm.
And this is probably where we go the most in depth into answering your question. Fear is a pervasive, cancerous feeling in the workplace. We are afraid of not making the budget. We're afraid of getting laid off. We are afraid of the reaction of our leader if we get caught doing, the wrong thing. We're afraid of that our customers won't like the new update. There's so much to be fearful of. And so there needs to be an active counteraction to that fear, which is love. And this is very touchy-feely. But what do I mean by love? It's not romantic love. It's love the way that St. Thomas Aquinas defined it, which is to will the good of another. If you have nothing else, have faith in that. Have faith in, if you come from a place of service and willing the good of another, then the right outcome will come, right? And you hear a lot of design thinking people and customer obsessed people. This is just different language for that same idea, that if you are willing the good of your customer and you want what's best in terms of their outcome, then it will work, right? That's the same idea. So free yourself from fear and have faith in that, and focus on love. And then finally, T is take the next right action, which we stole from Buddhism. It's the counter to the action trap, which is more action.
Right.
It's no, not just more action, but take the next right action. What should I do now that I've taken on this surrendered mindset so that I can show up in the right way possible? And that will allow you to be adaptable, because the answer will be different based on what circumstances are going on and the reality that you are surrendering to.
Well, that was a great answer to my kind of choppy question. But as I was trying to get it out, I was like, man, what am I really asking here? But that's exactly what I'm asking is how do you shift your mindset and be adaptive? Yeah. And so, no, I like
okay, let's recap it. We'll do it really fast since I talked for too long. S, stop fighting reality. H, have faith. I, identify what's yours. F, free yourself from fear. And T, take the next right action.
Yes, I am very grateful to have this time to go through the Surrender to Lead book, and I want to leave with some opportunity for you to point people in a direction to get it and all that. But before we do, we got rapid fire round. So I want to know, this is my favorite part, because I've watched so many movies and looked up so many quotes and kept them from this. Okay, so favorite movie?
Barbie.
What? Barbie?
Yeah.
Oh my
Barbie.
Goodness. Okay, is this a
so
new
good?
One? When was this one generated here?
Yeah, the one with Margot Robbie and that hot guy. What's his name? Not Ryan Reynolds, the other one, the hotter one.
This is the newer one. All right. I will definitely watch that with a little bit of, curiosity, but I will watch that one just because you said
it's a great movie. And it's, as someone who operates in corporate capitalism, it's got a lot of interesting messaging around culture, corporate culture, that you would be surprised. I mean, Barbie is a corporation, right?
Yeah.
And they're selling their thing, but they're also, Will Ferrell is the CEO of Barbie or whatever the company is. And it's just hysterical. They just got a bunch of white guys in a boardroom, bumbling idiots. And then Barbie shows up and blows their mind. It's just great. I love it. It's a feminist thing. It's hysterical. It's well done.
Okay. Got it. All right. Favorite quote.
Here we are.
That's
you want me to tell you where the quote comes from?
Yes. Let's hear it.
Okay. The quote, that is the opening sentence of the letter that my father wrote to me, that he wrote to be read upon his death.
Oh, wow.
So when he died, I opened the letter and it said, "Here we are." And I have it tattooed on my back now. And it's like the
Oh,
Ram Dass, "Be here now." Well, here we are. So
here we
that
are.
is that's my favorite quote.
Man, you're getting deep on this podcast. I mean, that's such a deep
I'm deep
story.
by nature. I'm a little psychotic, it's
Yeah,
just my
my
vibe.
goodness, love it. All right. Sorry to hear about your dad, but that is a really great story. All right.
Thank you.
If you were to go back and tell yourself something 10 years ago, what would it be?
It would be 10 years ago. It would be something along. I, of course, then had to write a letter to my daughter to be read upon my death, and the message is like, know thyself, go seek, be a seeker, go learn more, dive deeper, stop getting sucked into the life things that we think are fun, and go find something bigger out there.
Yeah. Well, appreciate you being on the podcast, and thanks for sharing some of those knowledge nuggets and from your book, Surrender to Lead. And if people want to get a hold of it, what's the best place that you want to point them to?
Easiest place is go to surrendertolead.com, and you can get all of the info there to buy the book, pre-order the book if it's not out yet, or get the book. And then there's a whole bunch of other leadership assets and resources, toolkits, and things that we give you on that website as well, so that you can kind of bring the concepts of the book to life.
Yes, and we'll absolutely have Culture Partners link in there as well, as your guys' company is obviously trusted around the globe, and so we'll have that link in there as well. Jessica, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a great conversation. I really appreciate it.
Well, that wraps things up for us today. Thanks for joining us. Join us next time where we continue to learn together how to develop ourselves and the people around us. Please don't forget to share this podcast, write a review, and we're on all major platforms, and we'll see you next time.